Thank you very much, Purity. And I'm happy to be in the show, KTN News. As you've said, my name is Professor Washington Okeo. I am the Vice Chancellor of the Management University of Africa. And briefly, Management University of Africa is a university that has been around for about 12 years. And we have campuses here in Nairobi, and we have another campus in Kisaju. And our niche is basically management and leadership. So we focus our training on management and leadership.
And that's more of a skill-based kind of a training. We shall be getting back to that. But let's talk about these years. Of course, we have a new administration. The Minister of Education has been receiving the largest share of money ever since, even when you look at last year's financial year and President Uhuru Kenyatta. So this year we're looking at an additional 84.2 billion shillings. Maybe, are you happy with this, or did you expect more? Because irrespective of how much is allocated to this ministry, stakeholders, education stakeholders come out and say, considering what is happening, then that is not enough. What is your take on that?
Purity, that is a very important issue that you have raised. And to look at whether it is enough or not enough, I think should be looked at in terms of what is that money supposed to be used towards. And first off, I want to say money is never enough. So whatever amount that you get, there is always additional needs that money needs to be spent on. However, for university sector education, first of all, the universities have been saying in the past that the money that had been allocated to them was not enough, and that they need, and this is in the wake of developments that need to be done in the university sector and in the individual universities. And so that is what the government should look at. I know there is the constraint of other competing interests, for the government to consider before they can allocate additional money to the education sector. But indeed, we have seen a situation where, because of that allocation, which I would say is not enough, the government is giving priority to certain students, and not all students are being sponsored by the government, are being given opportunities in universities as it was before. We have seen a situation where the government has come up with a new funding model, which basically now, I do not want to say that it discriminates, but it kind of divides the students into various levels of needs. For example, there are very needy students, there are students who are not very needy. So the needy students are sponsored more or less to the tune of about 100%, and the less needy, and it comes down, that kind of scale until some are sponsored to the tune of, less than 50%. So that basically goes to say that the money that has been allocated is not enough.
Yeah, and Prof, as you're saying, there's also a plan to, do I use the word deny, scholarships to students who are joining private institutions. And the assumption is, if you're joining a private institution or university, then you are okay financially. Is that the case, and is this justified? How is this decision by the government again going to affect students joining private institutions?
Yes, a very important angle that you brought again, Purity, because linking it to the budgetary allocation of 84 point something billion shillings, an increase of that. Before, the government used to allocate students to both public and private universities, although the ones that were being allocated to private universities were not many as such, probably just about 10% of the total. But nevertheless, the government was actually giving them scholarships. The government was paying their fees 100%, save for the tuition, about 16,000 or so, which the students were paying themselves. Otherwise, the government was paying for their, the rest of, their money that they needed to use to learn in the universities. But now, because of that change in allocation, it means the students coming to private universities will not be supported by the government under the new funding model. although they will get, they'll be, allowed to get their loans from the Higher Education Loans Board help, just like other universities. But that goes to say that the students coming to private universities are disadvantaged to a certain extent. But I need to hasten to say that programs and cost of programs in private universities, most private universities are actually lower or cheaper than those that are being offered in public universities. And the numbers are there. For example, in our university here, the Management University of Africa, the BCom program, which is a very popular program in the business, among the business students, costs something about just under 100,000 shillings, the whole program. If you go to other universities, public universities, some of them charge as much as 500,000, 500,000. Some of them charge as much as 400,000. So, there is that kind of, benefit that the students get when they come to private universities. In addition, our university, for example, the Management University of Africa, has got scholarships, for students. And we identify students by levels of need, so that there are some students who are not endowed with enough resources, but they have been placed to our university. Some of them also come as self-sponsored students, but they don't have adequate money. So we normally, give them scholarships. Some we give 100% scholarships, some we give 50% scholarships, depending on basically on the level of need. So we are handling it in a very, because we recognize the fact that all students need education. All Kenyan students need education. So the government's decision not to give scholarships to students coming to private universities is a very unfortunate thing, because it kind of, I would call it discriminatory, to a given extent, because all Kenyan students are supposed to get education. And indeed, the policy of the government is that all Kenyan students should, get education. So when the government chooses to give scholarships primarily to the students who go to public and not private universities, then that kind of goes against that policy.
And we're looking forward to a placement that's in September. Again, is this decision going to affect students joining private institutions? I know and I understand that most of the students that join private institutions, they're not 100% financially stable. Some it's because they have not met the cut by that's required before you join a public institution. So is this decision going to affect the students joining private institutions? And I'm talking about the numbers and even the time that they're going to join. They could join later than September.
Yeah, again, that is a very, very key issue, because although I said earlier that the number of students government was placing to private universities is just about 10% of the whole lot of students who qualify, that number is likely to come down slightly, because obviously students, the guardians, the parents normally look at the cost effectiveness of where they're taking their students. If the students can get education in a university at lower cost, they would rather go for that kind of university where they're getting lower cost. So that is likely to affect the number of students. But I don't anticipate a situation where it will affect significantly the number of students, because the quality of education that we offer in private universities we look at it as being, and we have gotten reports from the employers, we've gotten reports from the analysts and so on and so forth. Private universities tend to offer higher quality education than our counterparts. And this you look at in terms of the period that the students take, that is assigned to a particular program. The students that come to private universities take exactly that period. In some certain cases, they may extend a little bit because of the requirements which they may not have met during the time when they're being taught the courses. And in private universities, there's very little interruption, when students start their academic programs, which normally is not the case in some public universities, not in all public universities. But some public universities, There are normally student disturbances which end up, interrupting the students' program. So we ride on the back of quality in the private universities, so that even if there's a little bit more that our students, are expected to pay, and again, because of the numbers that come to private universities, we have smaller numbers. So the attention, is more direct to the student rather than the, a whole class of students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you look at last year's KCSE results, majority of students attained below C+, which is the cut required for any student to join a public university. So that means that these students, who are the majority in the country, will either join tertiary institutions or private universities. Let's talk about the level of preparedness. How prepared are you? Because some of them will want to join university or even a tertiary institution in September as their counterpart join in the public universities.
Yes, in terms of preparedness, purity, I want to say that, first of all, it begins by when we ask for these students, because normally the government does not just place students into the universities. It is the universities themselves to express interest. And the way we express interest as universities is we declare the capacity, that is the vacancies that we have, that we think we can accommodate. And then we declare this one to the KUCCPS, that is the placement body. And then after that, KUCCPS then confirms with the regulator of university education, that is the Commission for University Education, that indeed that university that has declared these capacities have those capacities. So once those two regulators confirm that capacity is available, that is the only time that then they can allocate students to that particular university. So in the case of our university here, the Management University of Africa, we declared capacity based on the vacancies that we have at that level. And that is the capacity that we have. So in terms of being prepared, in terms of readiness, we have adequate physical facilities. That is in terms of classrooms, in terms of lecture theaters, in terms of the auditorium, in terms of the library, and in terms of even student hostels. We are well equipped and ready for that. Also, in terms of the lecturers, we have qualified lecturers, professors, we have doctors, PhDs. We have, all the capacity that is required to handle the students and teach the students. And also, indeed, of course, in terms of the programs, our programs at Management University of Africa have been approved by the Commission for University Education, and they are all current in terms of addressing the contemporary issues in the society.
What are the major concerns in private institutions as far as government support is concerned?
Yes, first of all, there has not been government support per se, to private universities. Government support is more skewed towards public universities, and we understand because, public universities are public entities that ought to, benefit from the taxpayers' money. So in terms of the private universities, the support comes in terms of the regulation, that is the Commission for University Education, the regulator, who we work very, very closely with, the auditors, they find out whether we are following the right channels in terms of quality, whether what we have designed for our students in terms of programs, those are what we teach, and how we teach them, and so on and so forth. So that is support in that side. And then on the side of course, KUCCPS, also the body that is charged with allocating students to all universities, they also allocate to us students as we have requested based on our capacity. The government, what people have been calling government support, is really when the government pays fees for the students. And this fees does not come to the universities. The fees does not come to the universities. It actually is paid directly to the students. So that if the student is, for example, doing a Bachelor of Commerce, then the government, in the beginning, from 2016, the government was paying 70,000 shillings towards that student's education. But this has come down significantly. I think now it is about, it is below 50,000, about 48,000 shillings per student. So that reduction in payment by the government toward students' fees has actually meant that the private universities have now been sort of providing some support to the students, because the students have been allocated to private universities. The government is paying way less than what it costs the student to learn and to do whatever they are doing in the universities, and therefore the difference, the private universities have been footing that. So we are offering scholarships actually to those students, and we are in a kind of the government is in kind of a deficit situation as far as the universities are concerned, because they owe private universities quite a huge chunk of money. For example, our university here, the government owes us about 34 million shillings towards which is due towards the government-sponsored students that were allocated to our universities.
Finally, Prof, majority of the students, as we said earlier, score less than a C+, which is required for them to join universities, private universities, and most of the time they are seen as failures in the society. So this means that even when they go and partake of some of these skill-based courses, tertiary institutions, even the manner at which they are treated back in the society once they graduate, I'm talking about pay, how they are paid, again, it's not as much as someone who's gone to done a degree or even a master's course. So how do we bridge this gap so that we encourage more people to do these skill-based courses and not view even themselves as failures once they don't meet the C+ cut?
Yes, it's a very important issue, because like when we started, you say that the number of students qualifying to get into universities who got C+ and above are a paltry number. Yet the bulk of the students who sat KCSE are actually the majority, and these don't qualify to join universities. And that means that that particular number of students must be addressed. And I'm happy to say that the government has actually created a system where the students who fail to get C+ and above can now go through that system, from the artisan courses to the certificate courses to the craft courses, and then certificate, and then to diploma, and then after that they will be allowed now to enroll for degree programs. So that the government has created that process. And unfortunately, a lot of learners are not aware that that kind of system exists. And therefore, you find some of them even having not attained C+ and above, they want to go back, to repeat classes or to repeat KCSE so that they can attain that. But they don't have to do that, because the TVET programs and institutions are there. And in this regard, our university, the Management University of Africa, has actually come up with an institute called the Management University of Africa Training Institute, Technical Institute, which is based in our campus in Kajiado, Kisaju. And we have these courses, the artisan courses, in the various fields which students would be interested in. We have, craft courses also in various fields. We also have certificate courses. We have, diploma courses. And once students can graduate with this, diploma, and then they will be able to then move on to the next level. They can be admitted to the degree program. So as long as a learner has scored an E, they can be able to go through the craft, artisan first, and then move on. So from E to C plane, they have to go through those TVET courses first, and then once they do that, then they are allowed now to be admitted to the degree programs. And what we have seen is very interesting, that even some of the students who scored C+ and above are actually opting to go first to the TVET courses, and instead of going straight to the degree courses. And the reason is they have seen the marketability of the TVET based programs, because they are more practical in nature. The requirements for their skills are more than the requirements for the degree, because the degree is basically most of the students get their degrees to focus on where they're going to be employed rather than self-employing themselves. And that is one thing that we are now encouraging in our university, this issue of self-employment. And we have come up with systems and programs in the university that basically focuses on students' career and employability, where we train our students on soft skills, we train them on communication. And what we realize is that the current crop of learners that come from the KCSE or high school level, some of them are not very well endowed in terms of even oral communications, even written communications, and so on and so forth. And especially, being prepared, for the job market. So we are training our students to be all-round students who are able to face, the situation and even create their own jobs. We have a lot of entrepreneurship, sort of training that we do in this university. And through innovation and creativity, we are, encouraging our students to, and teaching entrepreneurship across all the programs that we have in the university, so that we can actually demonstrate to the students that it is not employment that they should be going out there to look for. They should actually be going out there to self-employ themselves, because the environment we live in is very creative, it's very competitive, and therefore if all of them are going out there to look for employment, not all of them will get that employment. Yeah. So we are training them to be, be creative, be innovative, so that they can learn how to come up with solutions to problems that are plaguing the society, and create their own, employment, create their own jobs, and so on and so forth.